Bhringaraj offers benefits in his dry, scaly, inflamed skin condition known as eczema. So eczema often has patches like this. You can see there's a patch of eczema on the back of this person's finger, and it's characterized by dry, cracked skin, redness, scaliness, can be crusting or oozing. Cradle cap in children is a kind of eczema. There can also be small raised bumps or dark colored, rough, leathery, or scaly patches. And there's an example of that right here. Um, this comes with intense itching and stinging and burning. The word eczema comes from the Greek and it means to boil over. It's a common condition affecting around 10% of the population. It's 31.6 million Americans, and it's mostly a children's disorder. 15 to 20% of children, only 1 to 3% of adults. Now, risk factors from the Joyful Belly database. If we jump over to the stats on Joyful Belly, we see here that it's associated with dryness and heat. And that's not a huge surprise here. If we look at some of the risk factors, we'll notice that there are that other allergens and skin rashes feature high on the list. So everything from detergent allergies to psoriasis and rashes you can see in this list. And um, yeah, asthma and epilepsy all seem to coincide. So I always think of asthma as eczema of the lungs, and I think of ulcerative colitis as eczema of the colon, and so you can get this inflammation occurring in different parts of the body, and I think that has to do with where allergic reactions might be happening, or autoimmune, or even just where exposure is happening. But they're related. People who have asthma have a higher likelihood of also having eczema. And as we know from earlier presentation on Bringaraj, that the liver is going to be playing a role here. That it's going to be liver pathology leading to toxin buildup in the skin, toxin buildup in the blood that eventually affects the skin is going to be how Ayurveda approaches conditions like eczema and skin rashes in general. So eczema happens to be more typically associated with dryness, although kaphas can get it too. Um, and other rashes may be more kapha related or more just pitta related, not pitta and dryness. So we have all these nuances with each kind of rash, and we're going to look at the nature of the rash to figure out, what are the biocharacteristics associated with it. In eczema, we're looking at astringency, heat, pungency, dryness, pitta, and vata. But it is interesting how much lower vata is on the list here. You see, vata is only a few points from the average, and pitta jumps up another 30%. So, and let's see where kapha is on this list. Kapha is all the way down on the list. So it's not typically kaphas that are getting eczema. It's your vata, as it's your pittas primarily, and secondary vata. All right, and we had what, 4,000, almost 5,000 out of 75,000 having um, eczema. So a little more than that 1 to 3% of adults, but probably the people coming to Joyful Belly are people who are coming because they have some kind of condition. So those percentages are going to look a little bit higher than the general population. All right, so let's look at this from the Western pathogenesis perspective. I've already given the Ayurveda one, but let's take a look at the Western one. All right, the idea is that there's a weak skin barrier, and that causes the immune system to get exposed to allergens and chemicals. If your skin barrier is not functioning properly, it's kind of like leaky gut, but leaky skin, right? Leaky skin, if I said the word leaky skin, you're going to think, oh, things are coming out of the skin, like the blood is leaking, blood plasma or lymph is leaking out of the skin. That's what people would normally think. But when you're talking about leaky gut, it's kind of the other direction. The contents of the intestines are leaking into the blood. Well, if we had that same use that same language to talk about the skin, and we had leaky skin, it would mean that the barrier is not able to protect the skin adequately, and that allows entry of allergens, chemicals, or contact of those allergens with the immune system, the white blood cells, and yeah, white blood cells in the blood or in the lymphatic system. So this triggers the immune response and eventually causes allergen hypersensitivity and hyperreactivity. Then inflammation sets in, and then once there's inflammation, the person starts scratching the inflamed spot, and then it becomes thick and leathery, a process called lichenification. In some cases, eczema is not an allergen response. It's just simply the weak skin barrier makes irritants more irritating. And there's also some psychosomatic factors there. And just like with gut issues, you can have psychosomatic factors with the skin as well. What are some causes? Well, a genetic mutation in the epidermal differentiation complex can lead to the malfunction of the skin barrier. Well, what is the epidermal differentiation complex, also known as EDC? It is a set of about 50 genes that encodes the proteins of the skin producing cells, the keratinocytes. And that's the primary cell type of the epidermis, the epidermal layer of the skin. And your skin is made of dead cells, right? So but there are live cells underneath them, and there's a process where your body produces new cells, and then those cells die and become the next that top layer of skin. That's supposed to be the protective layer. So the EDC codes those, and if there's a mutation in that, then there's an inability to produce filaggrin, and that leads to dry, scaly skin. And you can see here I put in some of the names of just the specific proteins if you're interested in doing further research. Not that you would try to memorize these. All right. Anyway, this filaggrin leads to this loss of filaggrin, or the poor quality filaggrin, creates a substantial risk to develop eczema, especially early onset and with persistent sensitization. All right, so genetic mutations in the EDC is one cause of eczema. Bacteria, harmful bacteria replacing helpful bacteria. In other words, a disruption in your skin biome can lead to eczema. So people who are constantly using sterilizing hand lotions, they destroy their biofilm, the biome on their skin, and even soap can disrupt it. So there's not really you don't really need to use soap over your entire body every time you shower. But you can use soap in strategic locations where needed. Environmental factors, pollution, etc., can cause development of allergies. Eczema tends to be more of an urban problem, whereas people on farms seem to not get eczema. Eczema triggers can vary widely from person to person, everything from cold air to stress. There's their psychosomatic factor. Metals and jewelry or fabrics, soaps and other cleansers, cosmetics, hair products, perfumes, lotions, your own sweat, abrasion, and too frequent hand washing or bathing. So your OCD folks. And scratching makes your eczema worse. So you get the inflammation, then you get itching, then you get scratching, and then that exposes your kind of further breaks down the skin barrier and exposes your immune system to even more allergens. So try not to scratch your eczema if you have it. What are some common Western treatments for it? Topical products include um, this calcineurin inhibitor, and that deactivates the T cells of the immune system. Anti-infection drugs, antibiotics, and anti-inflammatories like prednisone. But you're not going to take prednisone, a steroid, for long term. That has serious side effects. What are some other therapies? These are more lifestyle therapies. I mean, you could put these under Western treatments or Ayurveda treatments, right? These are kind of more holistic preventative therapies that you would get, um, for home daily care. Moisturizing yourself daily, but you have to use the right lotion, right? Not one that you're allergic to. Bathing daily, just to get those allergens off the surface of your skin. Make sure dirt isn't irritating your skin, but not necessarily with soap, right? We don't necessarily want to disrupt that biome every day. Use gentle cleansers, whether it's dish soaps. One of the things that I do to reduce my exposure to dishwashing detergents is I soak all my dishes. So I'll take all of my like kinds of plates and stack them and put them in the sink and run the water over them um, until they're kind of full, until the water starts, overflowing from the stack. And then I just let them sit there for 10 minutes or so. And then I'll take a brush, a dishwashing brush, not a sponge, and I'll just take the pile and just brush all the hard stuff off this pile, and then after that, I do one more rinse and stick it in the dishwasher, so that I'm not constantly exposing my hands to harsh soaps and emulsifiers that just literally break down the fats in your hands. It's, you know, kind of intense. So anyway, also practice safe scratching. Pinch or pat the itchy skin. Use a cold compress. Avoid your triggers. Soft, breathable clothing made of natural fibers. Also, phototherapy. Look it up. Has been shown to be good for eczema. Wet dressings. So cold, wet compresses. Oh yeah, light therapy. So light therapy is phototherapy. I already mentioned the Ayurveda pathogenesis. We had the Western pathogenesis was mutations, bacteria, environmental factors, triggers, and scratching. We talked about some medications to deactivate the immune system, anti-inflammatories and antibiotics, some home therapies. We talked about the Ayurveda pathogenesis, that liver impairment leads to toxin buildup in the blood, which makes the immune system hyperreactive. And some of those toxins get released through the skin, making the skin hyperreactive. So we're going to try to work backwards. Treat the inflammation topically, the ama in the blood, and strengthen the liver. That's what this is ultimately going to look like. But let's break this down into two more types. You have dry type eczema, which is more vata in nature, and then pitta eczema. So dry eczema is going to be due to dryness and deficient liver that eventually causes the pitta conditions that lead to pitta eczema, right? In dry eczema, if dryness is associated with the eczema, we're going to look at demulcents, not just oils, to moisturize the skin. So oil, when the skin is very dry, oil doesn't really work. But if you have a demulcent, it does. So make some oatmeal, mix it with some coconut oil, put some Bhringaraj and Mangista in there, and make a nice demulcent compress. Stick that over the eczema patch. To make a little bowl of it, stick it in the fridge, and then 3 times a day, put a little bit of that oatmeal on your eczema patch. And the paste of Bringaraj alone, applied for 15 days, there's some studies that show success in helping with eczema on that. Internally, you can make yourself a fluid building blood tonic. So Bringaraj can be your blood tonic, and then something like licorice root and marshmallow root or shatavari as your demulcent, internal demulcent, moisture building herbs with Bringaraj are going to be helpful. And an alterative like Mangista. So Bringaraj is an alterative. Mangista is as well. I think Mangista is a sort of alterative par excellence, and that gives you some great opportunity to clear pitta from the blood. And again, for pitta eczema, which is really just the skin's now being reactive, right? There's ama in the blood, or a person has lots of allergies, perhaps due to the earlier dryness and deficiency in the liver, perhaps due to other factors. Whatever the case is, you're going to use these same herbal formulas, and if there's already a lot of moisture in the person, you're not going to use these demulcents, as the case is. Kapha eczema, I'm speculating here a bit that the kapha folks will get eczema due to poor kidney function. You may be able to test that out on the Joyful Belly stats. All right, so looking down here, we see that risk factors for people who are kapha and have eczema, what we're seeing here is conditions like edema and croup and gout. So there's where you see your kidney, where kidney is related. So there's sort of these uric acid building up in the blood perhaps due to kidney problems. But here I notice lots of lung issues: asthma, wheezing, croup, and then also some edema, high blood sugar. Those look like they are have a high coincidence rate with eczema in a kapha constitution. All right. So what about what other treatments? Ayurveda's approach, similar to the Western, these sort of holistic approaches that we listed above, is just going to be to moisturize, keep the skin soft and supple, avoid irritants and triggers. I mean, all these therapies up here are going to be Ayurvedic therapies as well. But we're also going to address the underlying factors, cleaning up the blood and keeping the liver, kidney, and bowels healthy. So if your bowels are unhealthy, your kidneys are unhealthy, or your liver's unhealthy, you're going to get ama in the blood, and that's going to be a contributing factor. So what are we going to look at as our top herbal actions for eczema? Of course, I just said, liver, kidney, bowels, right? So we could add laxative to this list. We could add diuretic or urinary detoxicants to this list. But I'm just going to stick with the primary ones, so more focusing on the liver. So hepatoprotectives and detoxicants generally, your antihistamines to calm the immune system, alteratives and anti-inflammatories to remove that ama. Alterative is going to rectify blood chemistry, remove ama from the blood, and anti-inflammatories are going to cool the blood. Your antipruritics to stop itching, your emollients, which is going to be oil or, not really should say but oil and topical demulcent, and your vulneraries and skin tonics to restore the skin. So that's our overall, going to be our overall strategy here. Here's some other anti-eczema herbs from the Ayurveda apothecary: aloe vera, guduchi, and mangista. But let's not neglect the Western herbal apothecary as well. Herbs like calendula is going to be a great vulnerary to help with eczema. And in fact, I might even prefer, if I'm looking down at this formula for Vata eczema, I might even prefer calendula here because it's going to be a little more Vata pacifying than Mangista. If the client doesn't have, eh, well, we have marshmallow in this formula, so we could stick with this, right? We have Bhringaraj, and then look at this, licorice and marshmallow, two demulcents. Marshmallow is sort of directly slimy. When you boil marshmallow in water, the pot becomes slimy. Now licorice becomes a bit demulcent as well, but licorice is also a great refrigerant and hepatoprotective. Actually, all these herbs, marshmallow, licorice, and Bhringaraj, are going to have a nice effect on the liver. Um, Guduchi and Mangista, I mean, all of these are, in a sense, liver herbs, but they're also skin herbs. Bhringaraj is strong, hepatoprotective, and anti-itching. Licorice are refrigerant and rebuilding fluids for Vata. Marshmallow, nourishing, very demulcent and anti-inflammatory. Guduchi, anti-inflammatory, liver tonic, and Mangista is our alterative. So this is a very pitta reducing formula that can help with eczema. And here's how we're going to actually make it. First, you're going to simmer the marshmallow in water until slimy. That may take 30 minutes even. You really want to extract those demulcent qualities out of the marshmallow um, in advance. And then you're going to add the remaining ingredients, and then I would chill it. And then add aloe vera according to the bottle instructions. So aloe vera comes in different strength depending upon the supplier. So I always follow the directions on the bottle for aloe vera. You can use this formula topically or internally.